Nem fenékig tejfel. What is the English equivalent of this Hungarian saying? You will find the answer in the next video. Hello everyone! Welcome to my channel, Magyarok Angolul kiejtésfejlesztés. In my previous videos, I talked about tricky English pronunciation problems in Hungarian. But today, this lesson will be in English to practice listening and comprehension skills. The topic will be my favorite one: idioms, idiomatic phrases, and sayings. American English grammar treats this topic generously. A sentence or a phrase can be called an idiom if the literal meaning of it is different from the meaning of the whole sentence or phrase. How can you notice in reading or speaking that you are dealing with an idiom? You must realize that the literal meaning of the words in an idiom doesn't make sense. So, the idiom, be it a whole sentence or a phrase, must have a meaning of its own. For example, you are reading about a person who has a beautiful garden. The next sentence is this: she definitely has a green thumb. You must realize that the writer doesn't mean it literally, that the person has a green colored thumb as a birthmark or something. The phrase having a green thumb is an idiom to express that someone is good at gardening and knows how to grow plants well. When an idiom is a whole sentence, it might be a proverb, an aphorism, or saying. If it has a figurative meaning, I'll just call it an idiom. So the point is that an idiom, be it a sentence or a phrase, has a figurative meaning, a meaning of its own. In Hungarian, we call them közmondás, aforizma, vagy szólás. You might wonder why I think that learning idioms in a foreign language is important. I believe that using idioms gives the impression that the speaker has a good command of English and knows the culture well. So please learn a few or many idioms and pepper your speech with them. That was also an idiom, meaning use them here and there. To learn new idioms takes some effort, but not a lot. On the internet, you can find thousands of idioms to choose from. I have advice for those who are novices in using idioms. Learn English idioms whose Hungarian equivalents sound more or less like translations, so they will be easier to remember. This type of idioms are coming up in a few minutes in the first part of this video. This video will have 3 parts. In the first part, I'll mention a few English idioms whose Hungarian equivalents almost sound like translations. In the second part, I will introduce a few English idioms that have Hungarian equivalents in meaning, but expressed with different imagery and words. And the third part will be a quiz in which I'll mention either an English or a Hungarian idiom, and you can figure out the equivalent of it in the other language. In the first 2 parts, I'll say the idiom in English first, then I will say the meaning of it with a sample sentence, which will give you a little time to figure out, if you want, its Hungarian equivalent. Then, finally, I'll say the idiom in Hungarian. Before we start, I'll answer a question that you probably contemplate. Why these idioms? I had an experiment. For about 10 days, I listened to and read American and Hungarian media and diligently jotted down the idioms I came across. I picked examples from each language that have an equivalent in the other language. This collection of idioms seems somewhat arbitrary, but it actually is based on a true listening and reading experience. Now, let's dive in, or akkor csapjunk bele a lecsóba, as some people say. Our first idiom, add fuel to the fire, meaning to make a bad situation even worse. For example, to spank a crying child is adding fuel to the fire. She'll cry even more. In Hungarian, olajat önt a tűzre. Next idiom, can't see the forest for the trees, meaning someone fails to understand a problem or a principle or to see the bigger picture because he or she is too absorbed in the details. Example, my teacher catches all my grammar mistakes but fails to notice the brilliant plot of my story. He can't see the forest for the trees. In Hungarian, nem látja a fától az erdőt. It's worth mentioning that the order of words in the two idioms is different. The English version has the word forest first, the Hungarian one has the tree first. Nevertheless, the idioms still mean the same. Next idiom, sweep before your own door. What does it mean? Everyone should mind his or her own business. Example, you know, Peter, you're criticizing my bright colored dress while I'm looking at your royal purple shirt. I think you should sweep before your own door. In Hungarian, mindenki söpörjön a maga házatáján. Next idiom, it is not written in stone, meaning we can be flexible, the rules are changeable. Example, it's not written in stone that you must invite Martha to your birthday party. In Hungarian, nincs kőbevésve. Next idiom, have someone's back, meaning support someone, backing up someone. Example, you can always expect your parents to have your back. In Hungarian, mögötte vagy mellette áll. The following idiom pairs have the same meaning, but they express that meaning differently with different imagery and wording. The first idiom, beat around the bush, meaning someone doesn't get to the point. Example, Frank was beating around the bush. He was reluctant to admit that he broke up with Linda. In Hungarian, kerülgeti, mint macska a forró kását, vagy hímez, hámoz. Next idiom, all hat and no cattle. This cowboy idiom can mean that someone just talks but doesn't act, and it can also mean that a person is pretentious, shows more than one can afford. Example, Lily wore an expensive outfit and jewelry, but she borrowed everything. She was all hat and no cattle. And this second meaning has similarity with the Hungarian saying, fenn az ernyő, nincsen kas. Next idiom, go to the dogs, meaning something looks old, abandoned, or even, as a person, not well groomed. Example, this house used to have a nice front yard and pretty white picket fence, but now that no one lives in it, it's gone to the dogs. In Hungarian, Ebben 30 gyámban. Next idiom, out of the frying pan and into the fire, meaning someone is even worse off than before. Example, Tony quit his job and went to work for the competition. It turned out he got 20% more money, but he had to work 40% more time than in his old job. He was out of the frying pan and into the fire. In Hungarian, csöbörből vödörbe kerül. Next idiom, pick and choose, meaning carefully choosing the best part of something. Example, if you go early to a sale, you can pick and choose the best items for the lowest price. In Hungarian, kimazsoláz valamit. I think this Hungarian idiom is especially effective and rich in imagery. It comes from the act that someone picks the raisins, the best part, out of the bread, cake, or other dessert and leaves the doughy part behind. In the third part of the video, we will have a quiz. I'll mention an idiom, saying, or proverb, either in English or Hungarian. I'll say the meaning of it and illustrate it with a sentence. This gives you a few seconds to figure out the equivalent of it in the other language. The first idiom in English. Tempest in a teapot, meaning someone exaggerates a situation. Example, little Johnny tripped and scraped his knee. His mom made a tempest in a teapot and took him to the emergency room. The Hungarian equivalent brings Shakespeare into the picture. It is sok hű-hó semmiért. The next idiom in Hungarian, nem fenékig tejfel, meaning something is not completely pleasant or enjoyable, although it might have seemed so earlier. Something might have advantages, but the disadvantages are overwhelming. Like working for a demanding international company. The salary is good, but you must travel a lot and work long hours. In English, it's no walk in the park. The next idiom or proverb in English. A journey of 100 miles starts with a step, meaning every little bit counts. In Hungarian, sok kicsi sokra megy. The next idiom, I think, is a Hungarian invention, very clever and has a surprising imagery. A fagylalt visszanyal, meaning something has unintended consequences. In English, something backfires. Originally a rifle, later a car could backfire, but now anything can backfire that has unintended consequences. Example, her plan to make him jealous by going out with his friend backfired on her because he started dating her best friend. One more idiom or proverb in Hungarian. Ki korán kell, aranyat lel, meaning if you get somewhere early, you'll be able to pick out the more advantageous items, seats, etc. In English, the early bird gets the worm. So that's it for today. I hope you found this video useful, and if so, subscribe to the channel Magyarok Angolul kiejtésfejlesztés. If you like this video pairing, please leave a comment and let me know about your favorite idiom or közmondás. See you next time when I'll talk about more pronunciation problems and idioms. Bye!